Michael Jackson, Madonna, Lionel Richie. What was that like? Because those aren't just like bands, those are like statements.
Legends.
Legends.
Yeah. Like we put pictures up in our lockers of people that we admired, and I had pictures of Michael Jackson, and people made fun of me because I didn't know any other music. So I was telling him like bands that I liked, and I remember saying, I like U2, like U2, the band. And he was like,
so
oh,
funny.
that's so sweet. And I was like,
Welcome to 90who10. I am Jessica Entner, and I'm sitting here with my co-host,
Dan Eisenstein.
And we have a fantastic guest today. I'm so excited. I was just telling her she was on our initial wish list of people. She is a beautiful, amazing spirit who also happens to have one of the most colorful childhoods I can possibly imagine. She is the daughter of iconic record producer, manager, film producer, Freddie DeMann. This is Pilar DeMann.
hi, everyone. I'm so glad to be here.
I'm so excited to hear how you've been and what you've been up to. And also to tell you that we all went to high school together. Like everyone that's watching, we are all Beverly Hills alumni.
That's it. Where did you go to elementary? Did you go to school in Beverly Hills for elementary school?
No, so we moved to Beverly Hills when I was 13, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, no, 13, I was older. I was 14
Mhm.
or 15 maybe. And I moved schools probably every 2 to 3 years.
Mhm.
So when I came to Beverly, I was already in my junior year. So I did junior and senior year at Beverly.
How did you guys meet?
Our dads. I met her
Okay.
the first time at Hillcrest Country Club.
Okay.
And I don't know why I remember this so vividly, but you guys were outside having dinner, and we sat down and had dinner. And I remember you and Nisa, and then Nisa invited me over to like a brunch on Easter once. I mean, it was like this weird late in life, well, not late, we were our early 20s, but like later like meeting. But I always knew of you. I always knew who you were. You were good friends with people that I grew up with. So it was definitely like kismet, but I haven't seen you in person for, I don't even know,
a long time.
You look the same. So that's
Thank you.
So where did you move from? Were you an LA kid growing up, or was it something?
Yeah, I grew up in the San Fernando Valley. So I was born in Tarzana, grew up in Tarzana and Encino, and I went to Portola Junior High School. That's where I went for 8th grade.
So when you were living in the Valley, give us kind of a background into your upbringing. And your dad, obviously being who he was, he managed some of the greatest artists that we know, like pop culture icons. Michael Jackson, Madonna, Lionel Richie. I know I'm missing a couple that are like in the ether somewhere. What was that like? Because those aren't just like bands, those are like statements.
Legends.
Yeah.
So I remember certain things really, really clearly, and then other things I don't remember as clearly. We had very like humble beginnings, which were, lovely. And my dad started managing the Jacksons. And I remember them, all the brothers came to dinner at our house. And this was the house that I grew up in, which was small and on a cul-de-sac in Tarzana. Now, my parents are like, I don't remember this story. But I'm like, I remember getting up and walking through our kitchen into like this one room of the house. It was almost like a breezeway. And my mom had set up a big dining room table in there. And I know that Michael was a vegetarian, but this was so early on. And I remember that she was serving like steak and baked potatoes or something like that. I know it was meat like that. And it was something that we didn't eat at our house because it was expensive. So I remember thinking like, oh, who are all these people that my mom is like making this really big special dinner for?
Right.
And I just remember a lot of the brothers were there. Maybe not all of them. I don't know, because it was like my sister and I kind of snuck out, and then we were like shooed away.
How old were you around?
I was probably about 7.
Okay. So this is like late 70s, before Off the Wall?
This is definitely before Off the Wall. So that I remember really clearly. And then I remember later things with Michael. I remember being in that same house. And when the first rounds of allegations came out, I mean, I was probably 12, and I was really upset because I really loved him. And my dad was like, well, why don't you call him? And I was like, I'm not going to, like, that's weird. I'm not going to call him. He's like, I'm sure he would love to hear from you. Why don't you call him? And so we called him. And I remember sitting in our kitchen,
So wild.
talking to him on the phone. And, you know, he's very soft spoken. And I really did, like, I loved him so much. And I remember him asking, like, what kind of music do you like? And so I was telling him like bands that I liked. And I remember saying, I like U2, like U2, the band.
Mhm.
And
Oh,
he was
that's
like,
so
oh,
funny.
that's so sweet. And I was like, no, I didn't mean you. I meant the band U2. Like, I do love
Yeah.
your music, but
Yeah.
like, I really love their music. And
Oh
that's
my
what I
God.
remember about that conversation.
Oh, that's hilarious. That is, I mean, I remember when U2 came out and that being a thing too. Like
Yeah.
people were, you know, we're so used to it now because they've been around for so long, but like it was such a play on words. That's so funny. But that must have been wild. I mean, as a kid, having those types of celebrities in your home. I mean, were you aware? I
No.
mean, you weren't.
No. I remember I think it was probably 7th grade, I went to a school called Viewpoint. I went there for 2 years. So I think I was there 6 and 7. And I remember like we put pictures up in our lockers of people that we admired. And I had pictures of Michael Jackson, and people made fun of me because I didn't know really any other music except for the people that my dad worked with.
Wow.
And so they were kind of making fun of me, like, ew, you like Michael Jackson? Like, he's so lame. And I was like, what? Like, I didn't want to be lame.
Oh,
And
middle
then,
school.
yeah,
Oh, middle school. Bunch of
and
assholes.
Madonna was at the house that I grew up in. There's pictures, you can see them online. There's pictures of my sister and I laying on a raft with her. My mom took all of these pictures. She came to visit us. She was so awesome. She was so pretty and so cool. And we had never met anyone like that. Like, we were little girls who grew up in the valley. My parents kept us pretty sheltered until we became teenagers, and then they didn't care, and then all hell broke loose. But when we were younger, it was like we had never seen, like, she wore all her bracelets and tons of jewelry and her red lips and the black roots with the blonde hair. And she had a one-piece black bathing suit on. And, you know, she taught us like water exercises, and she let us wear all her bracelets. And
God.
she was just the great, like, we were just in love with her.
I mean,
In
it's
love.
interesting when you say that, you know, you had never seen anybody like that. The world had never seen anybody like that.
That's
So,
true.
and then you guys had like this front row seat to it. So it's even, you know, more special. It's just
Yeah.
it's unbelievable.
But we didn't know we had no reference to anything like that. So, and my dad would take us out of school so we could go on tour when he went on tour. So we grew up doing that. And Madonna lived with us when I was in high school.
Oh my
on
gosh.
2 occasions.
What
So
was
that
that
was
like?
weird. But
I mean,
that was weird because I'm the oldest. And as the oldest, you get, you know, punished for things that you shouldn't get punished for. And I remember my mom coming and saying, girls, you know, Madonna's going to come and stay with us for a little while. And Pilar, since you're the oldest, she's going to stay in your room. And I was like, no,
Yeah,
no. Why does she have to stay in my room?
of course.
Let her go stay in Nisa's room. That's like so mean. And I was so upset that she had to go stay in my room because I wanted my room.
yeah.
And it wasn't until 10 years after that, I was working at a production company called Propaganda Films, best place in the world. And we would all go out every single night. It was totally bananas. And we were at Les Deux Cafés. And I was there with all my friends from work. And Madonna was there. I think she was there with Debbie Mazar, who I grew up around. And they were at the bar, and she kind of turned around. We were waiting to get our drinks or whatever we were doing. And she was like, hi, Pilar. Oh, she was pregnant with Lourdes.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, hey, hi. And I went over and I had my hands on her stomach, and I was like talking to her. And I turned around after we were done talking, and all of my friends had their jaws on the floor. And I got so embarrassed because it never occurred to me. I mean, it did, but it didn't.
Right, but you weren't you weren't
I'm
talking
like,
about
oh,
that. Right. Yeah.
It's
interesting.
normalized. I mean, the thing
Yeah.
is, when these people are part of your everyday life, there's a normalization. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just your normal life. But then there's just this weird thing that you do know that they are Madonna, they are Michael Jackson, but it's this like weird coming together, and that's kind of a little bit what we're trying to shine a light on in the podcast is people who grew up in these like extraordinary circumstances, but when you kind of look a little closer, it's just everyday life. This is just the guy that my dad worked with or the girl that my dad worked with,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I said to my dad, I'm like, why didn't she go to a hotel? And he was like, she couldn't.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
she probably, I mean, I'm guessing, I don't know Madonna, but like she probably was enjoying being around your family too. There's got to be like some sort of, I mean, who knows? But it sounds like she had fun. Two young girls who probably were slightly not idolizing, but no.
I don't think we really even, I mean, I was in school, so we didn't really hang out with her, and she didn't sit down and have dinner with us. But there's things like that. Like I do remember going out to dinner with her. And I don't know if it was at that time or a later time. We went to Madeo, and she was, I mean, she was so beautiful, and and we copied everything she did. So if she was wearing that outfit, then the next weekend I was like, I'm going to the vintage store. I'm going to try to find exactly what she was wearing. But she was wearing like an old fashioned bathing suit, like a 40s or 50s bathing suit with fishnets and like high heels. And she wore a velvet like duster over it. So it like nipped at her waist and it was open. So you could see that she was wearing like little tiny shorts almost. I mean, it was just, she was like, and everyone was like, oh.
When you first met, I mean, obviously, how did your dad even get into the music industry? Like, what was his trajectory? Because we all know, I know of him once he's this hugely successful manager and record.
I'll give you a small version. There's actually a documentary that this amazing filmmaker, David Siegel, has been working on. So it goes into like the whole thing. But my dad grew up in Brooklyn, and he begged his way into record promotion, and went from record promotion at different record labels into management. And I mean, that's like the very quick story, and worked with people like literally like Lawrence Welk, and then ended up with the Jacksons. I don't even know how. I should, because I've seen the documentary, and he's obviously my dad. Someone said, they are looking for a manager. We need a manager. Would you do it? Something like that. He was like, I'm not a manager. And they were like, yes, you are.
Yeah.
And that's what started the whole thing.
It's funny. I've heard of a lot of careers that are happen that way. There's a void that needs to be filled, and somebody's willing to step in and fill that void, and then they're really good at it, and then they go on to great success. I mean, doing just a little bit of research for the podcast, I did a little reading on your dad, and obviously he was Michael's manager for Off the Wall and Thriller, which were like just before the height, and then like the explosion. And then reading about, I mean, he kind of almost stooped to nuts of Madonna's career. I mean, he was there from the very beginning and really guided her into what we know and through the biggest heights. And then of course, growing up in Beverly Hills, going to Beverly High, knowing your sister, it's a legendary story that your dad helped, Guy Oseary get his foot in the door and build the career that he built and get to where he is. So, I mean, for me, that's almost more exciting. I love that part of the story. I love hearing that he was willing to mentor someone and help them forge a career like Guy has. I mean, that's kind of exciting stuff. I don't know if you want to elaborate on that or if you have some thoughts on that.
So Guy and I were best friends, and we used to tell people that we were brother and sister. And I have a picture of us together at I think it's my 19th birthday. Yeah.
Just before we go too far down the road, just for people who don't know the name Guy Oseary, because not too many people out of LA do, he is now Madonna's manager, and he's president of Maverick Records, or
I don't think Maverick Records is still around. Okay. I think he manages a lot of people.
Yeah.
He has you too.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah, he has you too.
But comes full circle.
Maverick, we can get into that iteration of how that came to be too.
And he's also one of these guys that's just everywhere and like very
Yes.
in touch with like he's at the epicenter of kind of the
Everything.
movers and shakers, the
Yes.
tastemakers. I mean, people who get presidents elected. I mean, just really in that group of people. It's true. I mean,
No, you're not
It's true.
wrong.
yeah. So anyway, back to
You guys are best
for,
friends.
for people who didn't
We
know
were
who
best
Guy
friends.
is. Yeah.
I don't know if it was my sister. I think it was Nisa who introduced. Let's blame it on her.
Okay.
I think she introduced Guy to my dad. And Guy is one of those people, like you just said, he's not going to, he only affiliated himself with people who could take him to the next step. And that's not to say that he's not a genuine person. I think that he can be, but you know, a lot of his old friends, and if he watched this, everyone would say the same thing. I'm not talking shit where I am. I don't really care. His apartment window, they were across the street from, I can't remember the name of the hotel in West Hollywood. And like all the celebrities that would stay there, I'm just going to use this as an example because obviously he was not alive at the time. But like if Bob Marley was staying at the hotel, Guy would put on like his Rasta hat and like run outside and take a picture with Bob Marley. And if, you know, I don't know, Judas Priest the band was staying there, he'd run out with like his like leather and chains and take a picture like that. And like, he just knows how to adapt himself to every person in every situation. And he's really smart. He's really smart.
And that is a super skill.
For sure.
That is a super
and he's smart
skill.
and he's good.
Through knowing you girls and then the relationship with your dad, that really set him. I mean, he may have been taking pictures in West Hollywood, but as the story goes, your dad gave him a huge foothold and a huge step up. Yeah.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
My dad hasn't talked to Madonna, I don't think, in over 20 years. And he recently spoke to Guy because of this documentary, and I don't think it went well.
It didn't end completely well.
Like, no, it ended horribly for my father.
And it was very, and I remember this because it was in all the news. You can Google it. It's not like, you know, under the radar knowledge, just because I worked at Maverick Publishing back in the day with Lionel Conway.
Oh, I love Lionel.
Oh, Lionel's the best. But I remember this when, well, first of all, I just want to get to the name of Maverick because I didn't know this until I read this, but it's great. It is a combination of Madonna's first middle name and then your dad's real name. So her middle name is Veronica. So it's Maverick and his name is Frederick. And I was like, wait, that's brilliant. Didn't even know that. But when Maverick came to a crossroads and Guy and Madonna had bonded and wanted to take Maverick in a different direction or whatnot, they were trying to push your dad out, and it got messy. It got music industry messy. Yes. So I remember that because my dad had a band on Maverick at the time. He had the Deftones.
Yes,
so a lot of this changeover kind of affected and crossed, and that's why when we met, it was like, I think it was that kind of situation where they were meeting and we were there, and that.
And I think I met you at a Deftones show a long time
I'm
ago.
sure. I went to all the shows when I
because I remember, I don't even know where it was, but I remember you know, because you're so beautiful. It's not, you don't forget, you know.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Gino did let me sing on stage once or twice with him at Universal Amphitheater, and I happened to be wearing a see-through dress. I mean, you could see, I mean, I had a bikini on underneath it, but literally,
of course you did.
Like,
but it was the 90s.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it was great. It was great. No, but Maverick at the time when your dad and Madonna opened shop, people were thinking that it was probably just going to be a vanity label, and boy, did they come out the gates with just like some major artists, Alanis Morissette, Candlebox, which we represent where I'm working now.
You do?
So I get to listen. I was listening to them the other day. We absorbed a lot of it's Warner, so we absorbed all of Maverick's catalogs. But it is interesting because here your dad is bringing somebody, because look, my dad went through some of this too.
Of course.
Bringing somebody's career to light, nurturing them, bonding with them, taking care of them. And, you know, management is, and this is what's so funny when you said your dad was like, I'm not a manager. No, your dad's a people person. That's what managers are. They know how to network. They know how to adapt to different situations. I mean, everything you said is exactly what it takes to kind of be a great manager. And your dad had a wonderful reputation. From what I remember my dad saying about him, everybody loved him. that must have been a really hard time for him to go through. And I know that you were
Terrible.
post college. I mean, post college. Like what?
Yes.
Because he climbed. Your dad climbed. I don't want to say he climbed. But he created this amazing,
He
massive
did.
career for himself. What was that like? The tumultuous part
It was
as a
terrible.
daughter. Yeah.
My dad is very calm and he's very centered and I'm a lot like that, I guess, too. We're both very calm. He doesn't really raise his voice. He deals with everything. Can you talk about it? Can you work it out a certain way? He's not a yeller and a screamer. He never would be. And he wasn't yelling and screaming, but I've never seen him really depressed. He was heartbroken. It like made him physically sick, because that was his dream. That was his baby. As much as he had done all of these amazing things, and from a kid who lived, the apartment that he grew up in was basement. So he said, I never want to look at people's feet again. And the level that he rose to and the traveling and all the things that he created, he was most proud of Maverick. And it killed him. It broke his heart.
It must have felt like a really big betrayal. I
Yes,
mean,
it was.
on two levels. Yeah. I mean,
It was a
but it
betrayal,
must have felt
1000%.
like a death in a weird way.
Yes,
like
it was.
Yeah. Yeah. I can imagine. What did he go on to do right after that?
It took him a while.
I know he produced some films and he bought the
He
rights
did.
to the
And that's
Peter
when I
Sellers.
worked with him and we produced a couple of films and some Broadway shows. He still works in Broadway. He still wants to produce films. He's a total lunatic. And he worked with Shakira. And that was he was like, I wanted to show people that I could still do it, that like I could do whatever I wanted and I would do it well and I would be successful, that I didn't need, because I think it was hard for him when the relationship with Madonna ended, because suddenly people that would return his phone call in 2 seconds, it would take him a couple days. Mm-hmm. And he was like, I want to show all these people that I can still do this anytime.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. My dad and I had lunch the other day and he cracks me up because we were talking about a lot of this stuff. Like I share a lot of similarities with my dad, and I actually want to talk to you a little bit more. I love this. This is like a real interview. It's like the most, like I feel like this is so intense. I love it. Growing up with somebody who's in the entertainment industry and then like where your path kind of lies, which I want to get into, because I know you did touch on some of the entertainment stuff. But in talking to my dad, and he said this, and I'm sure your dad probably feels the same way. My dad was known for breaking bands, rock bands.
Yeah, rock bands.
Like that was his thing. He broke Quiet Riot, which is in my office, because where else do you put that?
Oh my God, I didn't even realize what that was. That's amazing.
I have an ode to my father in my office.
I love it.
It's hilarious. Well, where else are you going to put all this shit? He has so many things. I'm like, well, I'll put it in my office. Anyway, back to my stupid story. We were talking the other day and we talk about your career ups and downs and, your self-worth and how it really can be connected to where you are in life. And it's unfortunate, but it's true. And he said, it was always really hard for me to be that person that came in, broke these bands, took them over, to Europe, did my thing. And then all of a sudden a bigger manager would sweep in and be like, I can make you more money, because they knew how to do the brand deals and the sync licenses and all the stuff that creates income. But my dad knew how to break them. And it was really interesting because I saw it happen to him with two of his biggest bands, Rage Against the Machine, which was not a good divorce, and the Deftones and Faith No More. And you see these things and you're like, God, and now that I have my own career, it's really heavy when that kind of stuff happens. Yeah. Because being a manager, these clients are like your extra kid.
For sure.
It's a real thing. I mean,
they're calling you, they need your attention. Not even need, they demand it. You
demand it.
They do. I think that was kind of for my dad when he and Shakira kind of started to part ways. Her parents were there. Her boyfriend was there, who'd been her boyfriend for a really long time. And she called my dad and she was like, I'm really sick. I have like throat, whatever, like strep throat. Oh. And he was like, okay. And she's like, I need you to come here. And he was like, aren't your parents there? She said, yes. And isn't Antonio there? Yes. I need you to come here. And he was like, well, what do you want me to do? Like, you're sick in bed. I'm not coming to Spain. No, thank you. And she got mad and he got mad. And I think that was sort of the beginning. He was like, I can't do this anymore. This is insane.
And now, is it just you and your sister?
Yes.
Did you guys ever feel like when your dad was dealing with artists and had to kind of show up, especially at like early parts in their career, did you feel, for want of a better term, like neglected or put to the side? No.
Never.
Yeah.
Never. I think my mother did.
Yeah.
I think my mother did for sure. We never felt that way. Growing up, my dad would come home for dinner almost every single night.
Wow.
And we would have dinner as a family, and then he would go back to work.
So he made that family time really important.
Oh, yes.
Are
And
they
my
still
mom,
together?
yeah, oh, yeah.
Oh, I think I knew that, but that's the best. That's
Yeah.
rare. God, that's rare.
It's rare. It's very rare. And they are.
It really sounds like you had a normal childhood, minus the Michael Jackson and Madonna part.
Yeah. He got really crazy like in high school. And maybe that's where, like, thank God there was no phones
No
and like we
shit.
weren't
Yeah.
recording everything. We went to Helena's, the nightclub Helena's. I think I was maybe 15, maybe. And we were there. My sister's, 18 months younger. And we were there. Sometimes we had friends with us. Sometimes we didn't. But that was like an adult nightclub. And we went with like my parents, or sometimes they would put us in a car. I think we went by ourselves. I mean, it's crazy. And then Bar
really
One on Sunset.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I was 100% underage there drinking. And I didn't really drink that much back then. But like my sister would, like, we'd go up to the bar. We knew the bartenders. We knew the doorman. It was insane. I mean, my daughter's 14. So I'm like, oh,
that's the scariest, right?
Yeah.
We all have kids now, and we all have teenagers or preteens or just post-teens. And knowing what I got up to, and I wasn't, again, I thought I was this like young little kid still, but knowing what I got up to, I'm like, oh my God, by the grace of God, we're all still alive.
thank God.
Yeah.
The amount of car accidents I should have gotten into.
I think about it all the time, driving on
Canyons.
Mulholland in Johnny Natalinko's red. He had a red, not a Scion, but it was like a red sports car. He would drive so fast. He was 16 years old. I mean, it's
donuts at the top
horrifying.
of Doheny, all the stuff.
Yes.
It's terrible. But it is pretty funny that in there, because that we talk about this a lot. Like, I shouldn't say I haven't gone. I haven't enjoyed going to a nightclub since I was 25.
Wow.
If that, the fact that we kind of all like hit the out button when everyone else started doing it. Like, I was done. I've been doing it for 10 years, from 14 to 25. I'm like, this is not my lifestyle.
When I worked at Propaganda, we used to go to Cherry. I think it was on
Robertson. Yep.
Yeah.
I know exactly. And then I got around. Like, it was also the Factory. It was called the Factory on certain nights, but it was upstairs above Luna Park.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
I had my 21st
birthday.
birthday.
Think about where that is now. Is it
it's
gone?
It's across from the Abbey. It is gone. It is gone. They're both gone. I was just over there the other day.
Okay.
But it's funny you said that, because like knowing the bartenders, my 21st birthday, I'll never forget his name. He's the nicest guy. Gabe, one of the bartenders at 3 of Clubs, came to my 21st birthday, bought me a Pep Boy shirt that I literally just threw away because it was one giant hole. And he knew I was underage because he came to my 21st birthday. So like, I could go to third.
I love that story.
But it was like, that was LA. You knew everybody. There was definitely like that, camaraderie. Did you ever go to Ballistics, Dan's?
No, that would have been.
That was a little.
No,
old.
I heard about it, but I think I had aged out.
Let's talk a little bit about your path. So what did you do after Beverly? Did you go to college?
I went to college for a year and a half.
Where?
I am a beauty school dropout.
I love it.
I went for a couple months to SMC because I didn't know what I was doing. I don't actually think I ever went to a class, but I definitely.
I love it. Beverly by the Bay.
Yeah.
Beverly by the Bay.
Yeah.
In Ceylon Cantor. Do you guys know Ceylon?
Of course I knew Ceylon, yeah.
Okay. So Ceylon and I enrolled. I was living in Laurel Canyon. She was still living at home, but I don't know that her parents were around very much. So I would pick her up in the morning. We would drive to Santa Monica College, try to find parking, which was impossible. I think she might have gone to a couple classes. I don't really understand. I don't know what I did. I don't think I ever walked into the actual facility. And then I went to Menlo College.
I went
which
to
is-
Oh
Menlo.
my God, stop
You
it,
did not,
two.
I
Dan.
swear I did. The Oaks, yeah. Menlo
What year
College.
did you go?
I went to Menlo so my sister had gone to Menlo and graduated from Menlo for 2 years.
That's crazy.
And I went to Menlo for a semester. And then I came back and
You
went to
sound
SMC.
like me.
Yeah.
Oh my God, we were in like
And
reverse.
I went to SMC for 3 years, 3 or 4 years. And then I wanted to go to USC film school and I didn't get in. And I don't know if you know who Zalman King is, but he
Yes,
was,
of course.
yeah, he had written me a letter of recommendation. I'd worked for him in the summers and and I didn't get in. He said, come work for me. So I went to go work for him for a little while after SMC.
What's Zalman's daughter's name?
Chloe and Jillian. He had 2 daughters, Chloe King and Jillian Lefkowitz. And Lefkowitz is Zalman's real last name.
You guys are going to freak out. My
Yeah.
friend David, my god sister from England, was here. She's good friends with David, a good friend of hers, and he's married to Chloe.
Okay. Yeah.
And I was just at their house like a month ago.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
world's this big.
And so my dad,
It's so tiny.
But I know one of his daughters, but I don't.
either Jillian or
know.
Chloe.
Chloe, I feel like is our age, and she went to Crossroads.
She was dating a friend of mine, but this is so long ago. And I'm almost 53, so the memory is not super clear. But I definitely know one of them.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
to the sisters.
Yeah. So
That's
Zalman,
so
he kind of
funny.
fostered me for a little while after college.
That's awesome.
Yeah. He was very friendly with my dad. So my
Okay.
dad was a business manager and he
Yeah.
had like the Commodores and the Crusaders and he had a lot of film people, Gene Hackman,
I mean,
you
who
know,
doesn't?
John Borman was a huge client of his. Same as your dad though. So my dad was a lawyer and he was an entertainment lawyer and Johnny Rivers was his client, was his biggest client. And Johnny Rivers said, I want you to be my business manager. My dad said, I'm an entertainment lawyer. I don't know about
Yeah.
being a business manager. And Johnny Rivers said, well, I just trust you more than anybody else. And I just want you to, I see you're smart and frugal and just handle my money like it's your own. And my dad could not afford to lose him as a client. So became his business manager. And then that part of the business became more successful than being a lawyer. And so my dad stopped being a lawyer and was just a business manager.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
But that's a great like foundation for business management.
Yeah. But I mean, it's very similar to the story like you're saying with your dad.
Totally.
You know, there's a void there that needs to be filled and you
And
need
I
to step
trust
in.
you.
Yeah.
Yep. And
Very
I
similar.
think that's it. Gaining trust of people who are creatives, who are making money.
Mhm.
It is scary because, once you
Very
do
scary.
hit a point, and your dad knew, Madonna before she was who we all know, and to take somebody from that to the next thing and watch that morph. I mean, that is just it's fascinating, really.
It's fascinating.
Because you do become that person's person.
And that's the thing, when you were talking a little bit earlier about how, Madonna was really setting the trend for all these people, for all the girls, and the guys chasing the girls in the 80s. And your dad, I'm sure, had a huge part in that behind the scenes, guiding the ship left and right. And then as we move a little further along in the story, it is like losing a child, somebody who you've been there for, who you've taken those calls at midnight, 2 a.m, whatever the case may be, putting your heart and your soul in it because you believe in them and you love them. And then you have somebody else that you have helped mentor and bring along. And then this huge betrayal comes. I mean, it's got to be heartbreaking and disheartening.
It really was.
Yeah.
It really, really was.
And it's more than a financial thing,
It's
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
That's the least of it.
Yeah.
That's
That
the
really
least of
is
it.
the least of it.
Yeah.
It's a divorce. It's
Yep.
a marriage pact that has to be undone. It's, sometimes business divorces, and I unfortunately have gone through one that hurt, and it lingers, and it
Yep.
does it when those types of things happen and they are also tied to your finances. It is like that's sometimes even harder to swallow. But
Mhm.
it's
For
really the relationship that that disappears that is the most harmful.
But I want to get back to you. So Menlo College.
Okay,
And
so
then-
Menlo
and
Sorry,
then-
we
College.
what
tangent
happened?
sometimes.
And then what happens? What happens? I want to hear about
So
you and your
I
career path and how you ended up on the
got,
East Coast.
I left Menlo College. I got really depressed. The semester was ending and everyone was like, we'll see you in the fall. I think it was summer, but I can't even remember. And I was like, I'm not coming back. Like, I just I just was unhappy. And so I came home and my mom said, why don't you go to makeup school? And I was like, I don't really want to do that. And she was like, you love like makeup and beauty and fashion. Go to makeup school. And I was like, all right. And so that's what I did. I enrolled in makeup school. I went to Joe Blasco. They were on Hillhurst. And I moved into a little house in Culver City because I love my parents, but I've always been very independent. When I graduated high school, I turned 18, I moved out. And I have occasionally gone back to live with them in times of trauma, as we do with our parents. And then I was, trying to hustle as a makeup artist. It wasn't really going that well. I was very, very shy when I was young, very
Really?
shy, very. And so it was really hard for me to try to get a job. And I wanted to say, Dan, that when my first real job, when I was 18 and I moved out of the house, I worked for a business management company called Siegel and Feldstein. And they were definitely competitors of your dad.
Yeah.
We had Guns N' Roses, Jane's Addiction, Carlos Santana. And there's a ton of stories of like that whole time being there and seeing all those guys. But that's a crazy, like you're controlling someone's money. So that's like a crazy thing. And like,
was there a different vibe, like working in an office like that versus coming from like the creative aspect, which was more your dad's lane, like dealing with like business management? Were clients different in that office than they would be in your
No,
dad's?
the clients were totally crazy and wild, but the office itself was very straight laced. And I'm still friends with some of my girls who we all like went to work there. And there's another funny story actually with Eric Avery, but it was very like office. I was the receptionist. So I'm answering the phones and everyone's calling and, I'm just going to say this is true. The Jane's Addiction guys are all calling for money and they're all on drugs and like dealing with all of that. And, everything was done via messenger. So we would go, the business manager or the account supervisor would go down to the bank, get the cash, give me the cash. I'd wrap it up, call the messenger service to go to the Roosevelt Hotel or whoever needed what.
Bo Jesse was probably a messenger during that time.
Probably.
One of our guests was started as that. I'm sorry, laughing.
Yes. All of these stories are all true in our fair city of Los Angeles.
Yeah.
It's funny. It's a small world though. I mean, it is a small town. It is a very small town.
It really, really is.
Yeah.
I got in trouble at Siegel and Feldstein. I didn't get fired, but Slash, and I'm friends with Ash, but I had never met Slash. And Slash, this was like, they were huge, huge, huge stars at the time. And I was a huge Guns N' Roses fan. And he came into the office and he was wearing tiny purple stretchy pants shorts, tiny, no shirt, like coming to an office in West LA, like, no thanks for a shirt. And he came in and my desk, it was like a big desk. And he came in and was like leaning on my desk and talking to me while he was waiting for the person to come get him. And they finally, came to get him. And I like pretended to faint because I was like, that was just too much for me to handle. And I got called into the boss's office and he was like, you cannot do that. And I was like, I'm so sorry. Like I was so embarrassed because again, like shy, but I couldn't help it. I mean, he was laying on my desk. And he's in tiny bike shorts and he's Slash.
Oh my God, that is so funny. And they're thinking in their head, like this girl knows everybody. She's been around Michael Jackson and Madonna. She's going to be completely fine with this. And the opposite.
Was not fine.
Does not matter.
Because it's somebody that you like. That is so I have actually a really funny Slash story if I can tangent for 2 seconds because it is definitely a good 90who10 story. So when my dad was managing Faith No More, we went up to Day on the Green, which was at I want to say it was at Candlestick Park. That's not where it was, but it was up
What's
in the
the
Bay
lead singer's name?
Mike Patton.
Had such a huge crush on him.
Oh yeah. Amazing singer. Nuts. Just
I'm sure.
As crazy as they come in the best possible. Well, maybe not the best possible.
Maybe not the
you
best.
know what I mean?
Yes.
So we're there. I'm 14 years old. I've already been stealing my mother's car. My dad had a terrible habit of every time we went out to a place and he had a rental car to keep me occupied, he would give me the keys and I would just do circles in the parking lot. To this day, I'm one of the best parkers you'll ever meet. However, on this particular trip, we go up to Day on the Green. We are staying at some motel. I bring a friend from camp who lives in Oakland. I brought
How
weed.
old are you?
14.
Okay.
Freshman in
daughter's
high
age.
school.
My daughter's age.
Freshman in high school. I bring weed with me. I am now in the parking lot listening to Red Hot Chili Peppers, Blood Sugar Sex Magic, singing
Best
all the
album.
songs, best album. And I go, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to go on the street. I get on the highway by accident because Oakland is sketch. And like you walk, you go
Oakland
out,
is very sketch.
you go onto a street and the highway can just came upon me and I'm like, oh fuck, I don't know where I am. There's
And you don't have a
MapQuest.
driver's
I
license.
don't have a driver's license. I luckily
And
got
you're
that.
stoned.
And I'm stoned. So the next day we go to the concert and I'm with my friend and we have VIP passes. And the whole day we're trying to figure out how to smoke this weed because I have the weed. I don't have anything to smoke it with. So, you know, back in the day, you'd find a carton or a can and you figure it out. None of this existed because we're at a concert. So we buy a hot dog to kind of like peel the. Oh my God. Leave me alone. I was very, very industrious.
I think it's wonderful.
Sounds like it.
Peel off the foil, which is not foil, it's paper. Anyway, as this is all happening, I decide that I have had too much, whatever I had already had, alcohol, or I smoked a joint from someone else, and now I am nauseous. And I'm like, you guys, we gotta get backstage. I run to the backstage area. The guy is like, do you have a pass? And I'm like, she's fine. She's the back. And I just run through. The first person I run into is my father. As I am like, and my dad always would say things to me like, are you on dope? And I'm like, you can't say dope and not have me break out into laughter. So that was like a big, you know, when you meet like an idol.
He's got the magic.
He does.
It is tough.
I love Slash. I mean, I love Slash. I just saw them play at Power Trip in October and he is the show.
Oh.
So yeah, let's discuss that a little bit. I know we're totally digressing, but we have, because I have all of my friends from high school who I'm still really super tight with. We're all on a text thread together. I think someone saw them and they were being mean to Axel. And I'm like, don't you dare.
He sounded terrible.
Say a word.
He sounded terrible. He really did.
And it looks terrible. And I was like, don't ever say that to me.
You know, what's funny is I saw him a year or two earlier. He came out with Carrie Underwood as Stagecoach and he was really good. Yeah, he was really good. And he just sounded, with Guns N' Roses, he did not sound good. And this is, you know, I don't know, 9 months ago.
Right. He sang November Rain at Lisa Marie Presley's funeral. I was like, I never wanted a funeral, but now I do.
Wow.
I want him to sing at it.
So you were working at the business management office.
Yeah, that was like my first real job.
Yeah.
Then I went to college. Then I came home, went to makeup school. That wasn't going so great. And my dad was like, called me. I lived on Fairfax and Sunset in an apartment with a roommate. And he called me one day and he's like, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, just going to work, just leaving right now. You just caught me. And he's like, that is bullshit. You're doing nothing. You're petting your cats and eating a tuna sandwich. And I was like, no, I'm not. He was like, you have to get a real job. Like this makeup thing isn't working. Like you can't do nothing. And he was like, I'm going to make some phone calls for you. I'm like, leave me alone. I don't want your help. And a couple weeks later, I got a phone call out of the blue. And it was my friend Carla, who I'm still friends with. She worked at Propaganda Films. And she was like, we want you to come in for an interview. And I was like, did my dad call you? And she was like, yes. And I was like, I'm not coming in. And she was like, don't be ridiculous. Just come in and meet us. Mm-hmm. And I went and met them and I got hired and I worked there off and on for 10 years.
What did you do at Propaganda?
I worked for a wonderful commercial director named David Kellogg. I'm still very close with his family. I think I interviewed with Yanni Sigvatson, who Carla worked, that was her boss. And I remember him saying, you know, what do you want to do? And I was like, well, I don't want to pick up anyone's dry cleaning and I don't want to get anyone their coffee. And I don't want to work for someone who yells at me. And he was like, I mean, what is this man going to do with that information? People were begging for work. And I'm like, I don't want this and I don't want that. And he was like, you should meet. I think they had just hired someone for Antoine Fuqua. So they were like, no, you can't meet him. And they were like, oh, David Kellogg is looking for someone. And that would be perfect because David's so nice. And it was very much a research based job. Like he was like, I don't want you to help me on set. I don't need help doing that. So everything that he does, he's very meticulous, very researched, like for every commercial. Like we're shooting in Chicago, what kind of grass grows in Chicago? What does it look like? How long is it in this month? How long is it in that month? And back then there was no internet. So I went to the Beverly Hills Library. I knew everybody there and all the bookstores and all the magazine shops, and found him pictures and references and everything that he needed to do his job well.
That's
It was
awesome.
fun.
And
Yep.
propaganda, because I remember going to
The best.
propaganda. It was like one of those things where like Buckley, like everyone passed through
Everyone's worked there.
propaganda.
Yes.
Everybody worked there.
Yes.
I worked on a music video because my first couple gigs were as production assistant. So I got into like line production and that kind of side of things. Like the real grunt work, like
the real torture work. It's
I
painful.
have so many stories, but I remember propaganda. I still know people that came out of propaganda, started their own companies,
The best.
very successful. And it was a time. It was like the heyday of content before the internet.
Yes.
It was
Yes.
music videos, it was commercials, and people came out of there, those were what paid the bills, but those were directors that went on to do big films.
Oh my God, huge films and just amazing careers. And so the office where I worked, I was in the director's building. First we were downstairs and then they moved us upstairs. So it was all the directors. So we had David Fincher, Mark Romanek, Michael Bay. I didn't see Michael a lot because he was already making films. It's all very personal.
Yeah.
At some point when you're working there, you get married, right?
I did get married. Yes, I did. I got married when I was 27. I think I was 27. And I got married to someone who I met through someone I worked with at Propaganda, who I'm still friends with. And that didn't go so well.
Yeah. But you're a mom, right?
I'm a mom. Yeah. I've been married. I'm on my third husband.
There we go.
Yeah.
So I was married.
My dad's getting married this weekend. It's his fourth.
He is?
He is.
You didn't tell me he was getting married again.
He's getting married this weekend to the
Wow.
love of his life, who he met at 70.
Mazel. Many mazels.
Go Warren. I love that he's had so many chapters, man. But
That's amazing. That's so great.
yeah, it's nice. But so your third stuck.
My third stuck. Yes. Yes. My third stuck. So I got married 27, got divorced at 30, got married again really quick because I was in shell shock. Got a divorce, got separated from him, moved to London, worked on The Life and Death of Peter Sellers that my dad and I produced with another group of people, and came home and was like super single for 3 years. Didn't want to deal with anyone or anything. And then I met my now husband.
Yeah.
And you know, it's funny, when I think of you, I think of your sister. I think of her when I don't know how old her kids were, but she had this Honda minivan like all the other moms had to have. My ex-wife had a Honda minivan, but she had flames on the side of it, Jess.
Fuck
You
yeah.
see her it was her driving through Beverly Hills because she was in
Yes.
her Honda minivan with the flames on the side.
Red flames.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
Lisa was more the wild one.
Yeah.
1,000%.
Yeah,
She was
so,
the wildest.
Yeah.
Yeah. Married in high school.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
We need to have we need your sister and you to sit next to each other. And like,
I would love to do that.
Oh
She
my
doesn't do
God.
any, she's not on
Good for
social
her.
media.
I get it.
Yeah.
I get it.
She's now like, she's so not wild now that it's almost weird how like not wild she is.
Oh, that's funny. You know the episode in Sex and the City when they go to like see that one friend of theirs that used to be wild and it's like a baby shower and they're all like, what happened?
Yeah, like literally what happened. She's a really very accomplished psychotherapist.
Great.
So I think she has
I
to
might need her.
She's amazing.
I bet.
She's really is amazing.
I bet mostly fun people are great therapists. It's true.
Exactly, because they've lived it.
They've lived it.
So I did a dinner party and there was 10 people. I remember I roasted a chicken and I think I made pasta. And I lived in this house in Laurel Canyon and they wanted to introduce me to a guy named Mike. So I was like very excited to meet Mike Shear. And I don't even know, I met him that night and that was the only time I've ever met him. But his sister is Amanda Demi, who's an amazing photographer, like my favorite. But they were like, oh, we want you to meet Mike. Mike was really late and my husband came to the house. Everybody, when they come to a dinner party, you bring a bottle of wine or maybe you bring flowers. he's an artist and he was potting at the time. So he brought this beautiful pot. And I was like, oh, that's so like, I was so like touched. Even though it wasn't personal to me, I was very touched. He was really flirting with my sister a little bit that night. And then by the end of the night, he was really flirting with me. And we've kind of been together ever since.
And is he the father of your kids?
He is, yes, one kid. He is the father of our daughter and my partner in life. And, you know, we're very yin to yang. And like, he's also like a show business kid. So we have a lot of that stuff in common.
Yeah.
And he's an artist. So he's very weird. And
he's your
doesn't really-
kind of weird though. Your weirds match.
our weirds match, like,
Or
I
meld.
think I have a tolerance for his weird that most people wouldn't have. Like, he's not, and I would say this to his face, like, he doesn't really function as a normal person. He just was in New York, and I was like, you know, here's how you get to there and there. I'm like, you're 50 years old. Like, get an Uber app on your phone. And he's like, I don't need them tracking me. I'm like, you're not that interesting. No
You
one's
have a
tracking you.
phone. They're already tracking you.
I love it.
Yeah,
I
I'm
love
like,
it.
what are you protecting? Like,
I love it.
nobody's spying on you.
So
one.
is that what moved you to the East Coast? He was an East Coast guy?
Yes.
Yeah.
He was born and raised here. His dad is a theater director, did a lot of Broadway shows. His mom is Dorothy Lyman. She was on Mama's Family, and she's a director. She directed, I believe, almost all of the episodes of The Nanny, the TV show The Nanny. So he kind of grew up in this very thespian, very hippie. They had goats in their house growing up, and yeah, so he had this crazy.
It's
childhood.
kind of nice when you don't have to explain the crazy to somebody who's kind of grown up with it too. You know what I mean? Yeah, for lack of a better word. But how was that transition from you? I mean, I'm LA my whole life. You know, I've lived in a 5-mile radius my whole life. I have spent some time in New York, but what was that transition like moving to East Coast?
So we had a 3-year-old girl. And we would come, I'd been coming to Connecticut and visiting his dad. His dad's in the same house that my husband grew up in his whole life. And it's like, if I could take you guys outside, it's so right now, like, it's so beautiful here. It's very quiet. When we moved here, there was nothing going on. Now, since pandemic, like, all the New Yorkers are here,
Right.
Everyone, but like we sold, so we lived in the house in LA, in Laurel Canyon, small, beautiful. I love that house so much, but like a little bungalow. We sold that and we bought 35 acres. It has 2 houses. It has a pool. It has a pond. It has a very old falling down tennis court. I mean, it's all very old, and like, we don't have the money to fix it up, but someday we will. But we used to come and visit, and I was like, oh my God, there's a mama fox and baby foxes crossing the road. Oh my God, there's a bear. Oh my God, there's deer. Like, I love animals. I love nature. I love peace and quiet. So every time we would come and visit and we would go back to LA, I'm like, I don't want to leave. And he was like, he's very cool. He's like, so let's stay. Yeah. And I'm like, are you insane? I can't just leave. And he's like, okay, then let's go home. And when our daughter's name is Tallulah, when Tallulah was 3, we were starting to get her into schools, which in LA is
crazy. People
say it's crazy. It is so crazy. I can't even, like, that's a whole other show. We finally got her into a school. And then I'm like thinking about all of my contemporaries who have kids a lot older, because I had her at 38 and a lot of my people had their kids 10 years before that. Like, I have nephews who are 23 and 24. So I was like thinking of the things like those kids were getting into growing up in LA young. They're getting into stuff young.
It's a different scene. It's a different scene. West side of LA, private school. It's crazy.
Don't discount the Valley. The Valley's got its own.
Oh, listen, when I say West side of LA, I mean, look, my kids went to private school in the Valley too, you know.
Yeah.
Where did your kids go to school?
They went to the same private school that your sister's kids went to.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask you, if they went there.
Yeah.
It's a great school. I wish she never took my nephews.
In fact, right when I get done with this, my son is graduating and going to college next year, and we're going to the send-off for the 6th grade, for all the 6th graders that graduated
you're
together. My oldest is in her 2nd year of college.
Wow.
I have 3. I have three.
Amazing.
My daughter's in her second year of college. My son's a senior in high school, and my youngest is a freshman in high school.
Wow. It's crazy to me. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And they grew up in LA and they're great and they're fine. They're in
They're
college.
good. They're really good. They have a very overprotective mother, and they're just generally really good kids. And we got really, really lucky.
But
Well, you
let's
guys are
not,
good
oh, sorry.
parents.
That is 100%. Like,
Yeah.
you're good parents. And
You're
also,
good parents.
after COVID, a lot of these kids don't even leave the house.
That's
I
it.
know.
And look,
You're like, get out. When I wanted to be as far away from my
I know.
parents. The
Me
minute
too.
I got a car, I was like, see ya. They
Me
don't even
too.
want to drive anymore.
I know.
Yeah.
It's nuts.
Yeah.
So they're doing their own insulating, but crazy.
They're good. I got really, really lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they have a very overprotective mom who's probably scared the crap out of them of doing anything wrong.
Good.
So, yeah.
I scared Tallulah the other day so badly. There was something on Daily Mail, which I read every single day,
Yep.
sometimes 2, 3 times a day. I love it. And I don't care if it's trashy. But there was a story about a 15-year-old girl who took a pill at school and it was fentanyl and she's dead.
Yeah.
And
it's crazy.
It's crazy. And I mean, for years, I remember we were watching a movie and she was like, I like that guy. He's funny. It was Chris Farley. I'm like, well, he's dead from drugs.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
every
yeah.
time, like the other day, she was listening to Mac Miller. I'm like, dead from drugs. She's like,
Yeah.
I know, Mom. I know.
And how's your daughter? Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Right there.
Sure.
Yeah.
You got to have the conversations now earlier and earlier and earlier.
Ooh.
And like, I basically have had to my son's 11, and like you, I just have one, which I'm so thankful for.
Yeah, me too.
I don't think I would have been a
Don't
good
rub it in,
multiple-
okay?
I mean, no, but 3 kids,
I'm
I
kidding,
think
I'm
I
kidding.
would go nuts. Like,
Yeah, it's
I
a lot.
can barely tolerate
It's
my
hard.
my
It
own
is.
brain and my kid. But I constantly tell him, I'm like, my job is to keep you safe. I told him that my whole life, his whole life. And now it's changed to, my job is to keep you safe and to teach you how to keep yourself safe when I'm not around. You
That's it.
can't unsee something. So like, we have talked about this because I had to have, the sex talk. And unfortunately, kids can Google everything now.
Everything.
Mhm.
I don't want his first vision to be this terrible thing that's not even real. And so I even said that to him. I'm like, look, you can Google everything. I can't control everything other than, we turn the internet on and off at our house. But for me,
Do you really?
much like, oh, he has limits. I mean,
Yeah. Oh, no. But I mean, I like when you said turn it, you don't like literally turn off the internet at your house just for him.
No,
right?
just for him.
Yeah.
But like,
Yeah.
he has all the precautions for now, but like at the
Yeah.
same time, it's a different, they don't have the luxury of finding out.
You know what's funny though,
You know
too,
what I'm
is
saying? Like, if you do a drug now,
I
you
was
don't know what's gonna happen.
talking with my girlfriend, and like with my oldest daughter, I'm totally confident in her being away at college, because you saw growing up, and we let the boundaries out a little bit, and you saw how she responded to that, and she's pretty responsible on her own. And of course, kids are gonna like push the envelope, but if your kid can be trusted, basically,
Yes.
right? And
Yeah.
and so I don't worry about my daughter, who is, I mean, I still worry because I'm a dad, but I feel like she's for the most part is going to make the right decision, and she's gonna test the limits, or test the waters. But I don't really, and I hate saying it, but I do worry, but I do trust her, if that makes any sense at all.
Yeah.
It does.
No,
Well,
it
she's
does.
also the firstborn and she's a girl.
Yep.
Yeah.
But
And
she's always
that's-
just been super responsible. Like in 5th grade, she just decided, like, she didn't like showing up without her homework. She didn't like not being from 5th grade on, she had her homework done. The lunch was already put away in the fridge. The uniform was laid out, and she was the one like getting the other ones up and saying, come on, we're going, we got to leave. And she was the one driving them to school. She was like, if you're not out the door at 7:05 or 8:05 or
I'm
whatever the
leaving
time
without
was,
you.
I'm leaving without you.
Would
Yeah.
she like a job working at my house? And like, why would you keep having more kids if you got a perfect one, the first one out? I'm
yeah.
joking. Because the other ones are funny.
They're just different. They're so
They're all
different in their
yeah.
own way. I mean, like I
Yeah.
said, Riley, I never got an email home ever. With my son, he's with school, he will put everything off to the very end, and then the email will come that he's got a D and he's got to do X, Y, and Z to bring it up to a B or an A. And he'll do it all in the last 2 weeks and bring it up to where he is. And then my youngest is like, school? What's that? Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. I love kids. I think they're so cool.
Yeah.
And
So
si-
go ahead.
go on.
No, you go.
No, just as you're, as you moved to the East Coast and, you guys were born and raised in LA, right? You were.
Yeah. I was.
Where's the rest of your family? Are they all in LA? Or did you guys all leave?
No. So we moved in, Tallulah was born in 09. We moved in 12. We moved on her 3rd birthday, and I've never been happier. I love it here so much. And we would go back to LA at least once a year to visit my family and my parents. And then my parents bought a house in Connecticut in maybe in like 14 or 15, maybe 15, they moved here. And they still had their house in LA. They sold that. During pandemic, my sister moved to Colorado. So she's in Colorado. My oldest nephew is in Dallas because he went to SMU and then started working right after that. And he's there and doing really well. So the only one, my sweet youngest nephew, Sullivan, is still in LA. He loves it. He's holding down the fort. I think Maxwell, my older nephew, will probably move back eventually. And I haven't been back in 6 years.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So what are you doing now in Connecticut?
In life?
Yeah.
I have a beauty studio. So I went back into makeup.
That's awesome.
Okay.
Yeah. So I
love
went
it.
back into makeup. I was like, oh, there's my squirrel. I feed a little squirrel. He's outside. I got back into
Like a
makeup. When I
Disney
moved back here, I
princess.
was like, my kid's going to school. What am I going to do? And I was like, I don't want to get back into production because I cannot do those hours anymore. I just can't do it.
No, it's, yeah.
And so there was like a great local kind of, cool hair salon in the town next door. That's like a bigger town. And because it's all like, you guys would come here and be like, what? So I got a job there and I was doing makeup, and my specialty has always been eyebrows. So I started working there. I worked there for 3 years, and then another shop opened right in my little village. So I was going between the two of those places. Then I left that place and opened my own studio right before the pandemic. And I have a really beautiful, wonderful business that I love. And I have a makeup line that I developed and am now trying to kind of push out into the world like a baby that doesn't want to be born.
That's amazing.
I
though.
love that. I love that.
It's pretty fun.
It
Do you
feels
miss-
full circle.
Yeah.
It is totally full circle.
Yeah.
It's totally, and I
love
love it here. I don't super love I love going to New York when I go. My parents they sold their place in Connecticut. They live half the year in Miami, and then they just bought an apartment in New York City. So I'm leaving on Sunday to go see them. And it's great. Like, I'll go have dinner. We'll go to the Met and we'll walk around New York. And it's fun. Like, I could never live in New York City.
No, I feel the same way. It's funny. I'm like you. I like wide open spaces and nature.
You got to
Like,
come
that's
visit.
where
We talked about it. You said you might.
I was thinking about doing an East Coast thing for the summer even.
Yeah,
Like,
that's
just
what you
kind
said.
of going,
So you have to, you will.
we'll just bring a tent. Sounds like you have some room. Like,
Yeah,
we'll
just come. We have a guest
we'll
room.
sleep
It's
in your
10
yard.
rooms, but it's so magical here that, like, some people get the bug and some people don't.
What's it like raising a daughter in such a different atmosphere than what you were raised in? And is she so different from how you were as a teenager, or?
Not really. I mean, yes and no. And I think I when she was born in LA. Once I said that, obviously, her due date was September 7th, and she was born on October 1st.
Oh,
And I didn't want any intervention, so it's a lot of my fault too. But we were in the hospital. I was trying to have a baby for 44 hours. And so when she came out and everything happened, and the next day my OB came in and he was like, she's a diva. She was never coming out. We had to go and get her. And I was like, that's a weird thing to say about a baby. It's true. Like, that is who she is. She is a diva. she just got voted most likely to become famous. I'm like, no.
Is she like you or your husband? Both, I'm sure. But
She's not like either of us. Like she is, she's really smart. She's a great writer. She's a great beauty, and she knows it. Like the other day, and she would be so embarrassed by me even speaking her name. But the other day we were late and I had an exercise class and I'm like, oh, I said, dude, I'm late for my class. And she's like, but at least my makeup looks good.
oh my gosh.
What a
like,
great talk this was. I mean,
I
unbelievable.
loved it so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah, we're gonna have to have you on again because I
We're
feel
gonna
like
have
would
to
love
have
to
you
just
bring your
scratched the
sister and your
surface.
husband.
Oh my God. I don't know if he would do it. He's so weird, but
we get you and Nissan together, or
let's do me and Nisa. That would be
just-
fun.
I think that'd be great. That would be
I
awesome.
know you have so many more stories.
You do.
So many more.
So
I feel like we
many.
just scratched the surface of it.
I know
to be
it's
honest.
also was like
Yeah.
a long catch up too.
Yeah.
I'm like, what did you
Yeah.
do?
Well, I mean, if we want to talk like celebrity stuff, like there's a ton.
We'll have to.
Just
We'll have
fun.
to. We're gonna get you back on,
We'll do a part 2.
and
Okay.
I'm definitely sending you a Facebook friend request.
Yeah, I can't believe you
Yeah.
haven't. And you have to have Nikki Koskoff on.
Yeah.
I mean, and anyone that I can.
And I will.
I know we have to wrap up, but like
Yeah.
one of my things was like, I don't want to do it, but I would love, like, there needs to be either a documentary or a podcast or a book that talks about like all this crazy stuff. Like I grew up with the Zappa kids and like
Yeah.
all of their crazy stories.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
because we would go to their house and we're like, oh my God, like
Yeah.
what? But that was normal.
Totally. My mom had friends that lived in Laurel Canyon with giant pot bushes in their backyard, and that was like no big thing.
No big thing.
But like, yeah, it was great. We got the best of the best stuff. We really did.
did.
You are so awesome. You look beautiful. Your skin is
you.
glowing and lovely.
I just had a treatment.
I mean,
You look fantastic.
whatever
you.
you're doing it right. But it's been, I love having you, and I know Dan was really excited. So
Oh my God, I love this too. It's so much fun for me because I feel like
when
super
else do
connected
you get
to you
to talk
guys.
about these stories, right?
Never.
It's like,
Never.
I love it.
Yeah, it's great. Well, until next time, everybody, this is Pilar DeMann. I'm
Yeah.
so glad that she was able to join us today. Don't forget to like, subscribe. You can find us on all the platforms. If you want to watch us, you can also check us out on YouTube. And until next time, this has been 90who10.
Awesome. Thank you.